Disclaimer for description. This story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. I was searching for my favorite lipstick, the one that always made me feel untouchable, when the living room shifted beneath my gaze. My heart froze, caught between disbelief and a surge of something dangerously alive. There he was, my husband, entangled in a closeness with someone else that I never expected. My pulse spiked, not just from anger but from the undeniable tension crackling in the air. Every stolen glance, every brush of skin seemed to mock the life we'd built. I stepped back, the air thick between us, my lips pressing together as my mind raced. I felt a magnetic pull, a forbidden gravity drawing me toward the other man, the one I shouldn't even consider. A gaze exchanged, a half smile, and suddenly the hallway became a stage for unspoken desires and raw emotion. I realized how fragile control really is, how quickly certainty can twist into temptation. The room seemed to hum around us, shadows deepening, the weight of choices hanging heavy. I could feel it, the spark of danger, the thrill of something untamed. The world outside the walls didn't exist anymore. Only the heat of the moment, the tension stretched taut between desire and consequence. Every subtle movement whispered possibility, each heartbeat punctuating the unspoken question. What happens when lines are crossed, when desire ignores reason? And then a slow electric pause. The kind that stretches seconds into eternity. I stood at the edge of everything I knew, staring at what shouldn't be, feeling the pull of what could be. The story had shifted and nothing would ever feel the same. The hallway felt impossibly small, each step echoing against the hardwood floor like a heartbeat I could feel in my chest. He leaned casually against the wall, his gaze lingering on me longer than was polite or safe. I could feel the weight of his attention, a magnetic pull I wanted to resist but couldn't. Our eyes met and for a moment words felt unnecessary. The space between us vibrated with unspoken questions and possibilities. I shifted slightly, almost brushing past him, and the faintest touch of his hand on my arm sent a shiver I tried to disguise as irritation. My lips parted, not with a word but with the unsaid recognition of what was simmering beneath the surface. There was history here, maybe a memory of something fleeting, something forbidden that neither of us dared name. We circled each other carefully, like dancers on an invisible stage, careful not to step too far but too drawn to step away. Every glance, every hesitant smile, spoke volumes. I could feel my pulse rising with each second, each subtle motion, as though the air itself had thickened around us. The hallway held our tension like a living thing, a quiet witness to the electricity crackling between us. And yet there was restraint, an invisible wall neither of us would cross. Desire tangled with doubt, curiosity wrapped in guilt. And somewhere in that mess I realized how dangerously alive I felt just standing near him. The room beyond the hallway faded into a blur, only this charged, suspended moment mattered, a perfect pause between temptation and reason, curiosity and control. The hallway seemed to contract with every heartbeat, closing in around us like the space between desire and restraint. His eyes lingered on me, sharp and questioning, as if searching for permission I didn't have the right to give. I felt a pull toward him that was almost physical. A magnetic ache that made my chest tighten and my fingers tremble. And yet there was something invisible holding me back. Our past, my vows, the life we'd both built around caution. For a fleeting moment I imagined leaning into him, letting everything unravel. My hand brushed the edge of his arm as I shifted, an accidental graze that sent sparks crawling up my spine. He didn't move away, but neither did he close the distance. We hovered in that electric pause, two bodies aware of the space between them. Hearts screaming, minds arguing. Every glance, every subtle inhalation spoke of longing and restraint in equal measure. I could feel secrets pressing against the surface of our conversation, memories of what we weren't supposed to feel mixing with the undeniable chemistry that hung like heat in the air. A slight smile flickered across his lips, quiet, knowing, but it carried weight, the weight of things unspoken. I wanted to ask him questions, confront the pull between us, but the words caught in my throat, heavy and charged. Time slowed, measured in shallow breaths, and the silent language of fingers almost touching, and the ache of wanting grew thick in the room. Neither of us moved, yet neither of us left. It was a delicate balance of restraint and surrender, a tension so raw it nearly ached. I realized then that desire wasn't always loud. It could live in stillness, in the grazing of hands, in the weight of a look, and in the fragile space where temptation met control. The hallway seemed suspended in time, the world beyond its walls fading into a blur of soft light and shadow. Every breath I drew felt heavier, as though the air itself had thickened around us, charged with a desire neither of us dared name aloud. His gaze held me like gravity, pulling me forward and threatening to unravel the careful control I'd maintained until now. I took a tentative step closer, feeling the space shrink to the width of a heartbeat. My chest lifted and fell, and I could see the tension mirrored in his every line, the way his fingers twitched at his side, the slight tilt of his head as if weighing the consequences of letting go. The silence stretched, intimate and sharp, filled with all the things we hadn't said, all the things we'd been holding back. Then a whisper, soft and low, almost lost in the hush of the hallway. His voice, just barely audible, sent a shiver down my spine. I couldn't answer, not because I didn't want to but because I was afraid to shatter the fragile space between us. We hovered there, two people on the edge of something vast, something urgent, something we'd both denied for too long. My hand lifted, trembling, drawn toward him in a motion so slight it might have been imagined. For a heartbeat it hovered near his chest, our proximity electric. The tiniest brush, the faintest touch would have changed everything. Yet we both held back, caught in the tension between yearning and restraint. I felt it, his heat, his hesitation, the quiet storm behind his eyes. And in that suspended second, everything else disappeared. The living room, the couch, the life we'd built. Only the pull between us remained, raw, poetic, and unrelenting. And then a breath, shared, almost mingling, and the silence deepened, thick with all the things that could not be said. The world outside the hallway might as well have ceased to exist, and I knew if anything were to happen now, nothing would ever feel the same again. The night had fallen soft and velvet outside the windows, rain tracing delicate patterns against the glass, each droplet a quiet rhythm to the storm inside me. The hallway no longer seemed small, it had become a cocoon of warmth, of suspended time. I could feel him close, so close that I could sense the rise and fall of his breath, the subtle brush of his arm against mine, as if our bodies had begun speaking a language we'd both longed to hear. Her lips barely touched mine in a fleeting unspoken greeting, and my breath melted into his as though we were two halves rediscovering a long-forgotten whole. Every heartbeat between us thundered in the quiet room, each one louder than the rain outside. The tension that had clung to our skin for weeks, months, maybe years, finally gave way to something soft, electric, and wholly alive. We moved like shadows, close but careful, savoring each second. The warmth of his presence brushed against me, igniting sensations I hadn't permitted myself to feel until now. Words became unnecessary, our bodies spoke everything that had been trapped in hesitation and longing. A hand grazed a shoulder, a cheek rested against a collarbone, and the world narrowed to these shared breaths, these shared heartbeats. The rain outside deepened, tapping a slow, hypnotic rhythm against the glass, echoing the slow, deliberate cadence of our closeness. I could feel his pulse under my fingertips, the quiet strength of him and the fragile surrender in my own chest. There was no rush, no urgency, just the exquisite tension of closeness, the intoxicating weight of desire held in restraint and release simultaneously. In that moment everything felt infinite, the storm outside, the warmth inside, the quiet confession of bodies speaking what words could never convey. Time had stopped, leaving only the soft intimacy, the slow dance of hearts and breaths, and the undeniable truth that they had finally let go without losing themselves but finding each other. Morning arrived softly, the sunlight spilling through half-drawn curtains and painting the room in muted gold. The hallway that had held so much tension the night before now felt strangely empty, yet the air was thick with what had transpired. I could still feel him nearby even when we didn't speak, as if the space between us carried the memory of every glance, every breath shared in suspended time. We moved carefully around each other, avoiding eye contact at first, letting the silence speak. The night had been a storm, and now we were left sifting through the aftermath, fragments of desire, glimpses of something deeper, and the gentle ache of uncertainty. Was it love? Was it just a fleeting escape from the weight of our lives? I couldn't tell, and neither could he. But that uncertainty made everything feel more alive, more real. He reached for a coffee mug, his hand brushing mine, and the simple touch sent a shiver up my spine. We laughed softly at our own awkwardness, the small human moments breaking the tension while holding it just taut enough to remind us of the night we'd shared. Words felt clumsy, inadequate, yet in that silence our connection deepened. Then a knock at the door startled us both. A visitor we hadn't expected, someone from the edges of our lives, someone who would remind us that the world outside still existed. It was a twist we hadn't foreseen, a reminder that life didn't pause for desire. And yet, even with the intrusion, there was a fragile peace between us, an acknowledgement that something had shifted irrevocably in ways neither of us could deny. We lingered in the hallway a moment longer, bodies close but not touching, hearts heavy and alive. There was no rush to define what had happened, no need to force clarity, just the quiet hum of shared experience, the fragile bridge between longing and restraint, and the unspoken understanding that whatever came next we would face it differently together, even in silence. The afternoon light fell soft and forgiving, casting long golden streaks across the hallway that had held so much of our story. We stood there quiet, breathing in the same space, hearts slowly untangling from the intensity of the night before. There were no grand gestures, no declarations shouted into the world, just the tender, deliberate choice to stay present with each other. I rested my forehead against his, feeling the warmth of him seep into me, the steady rise and fall of his chest grounding the whirlwind of emotion inside me. He brushed a stray lock of hair from my face, a simple gesture heavy with meaning. The world beyond the walls felt distant, irrelevant, as if time itself had slowed to let us savor this fragile, perfect moment. We laughed softly at the absurdity of our own hearts, at the way tension had built and lingered between us, at the secret storm of desire now transformed into something gentler yet no less powerful. No words were needed, our eyes said everything. A silent promise, a mutual understanding that this closeness, this connection would endure even amid the chaos of the world outside. And yet there was a lingering sweetness of what might have been the unspoken ifs, the delicate brush of memory that would remain a part of us. The hallway once charged with urgent tension now held only calm warmth, a quiet testament to human desire and the choices that shape our hearts. We stepped apart but only slightly, each movement deliberate, a gentle acknowledgement that intimacy could exist in softness as well as in fire. As I walked toward the door I looked back once more. His gaze met mine, steady and filled with quiet affection. No promises were shouted, but in that look, in that fleeting contact, we both knew, some moments stay with you forever, not because they needed to be defined, but because they were felt deeply, wholly and honestly.